Hey everyone, Attorney Davis Yance here. This is day 4 of our series on the book Living for Leadership. And this video, we're going to talk about my favorite line, my favorite quote from this book. It's very simple. It says, "You can be a bum or a hero. The choice is yours." So as we've gone through this series and talked about this book, we learned that it was a banned book. We sort of learned where it came from, the purpose behind it, and the fact that Air Force leaders in the 50s believed they had a solution to win the Cold War. They had the secret weapon, and that was character. Character based, as we talked about yesterday, on a biblical standard, on a clear, eternal truth, and that they understood when they wrote this and they were teaching this to military officers that there was a basic understanding of what it means to be an American and the fact that America was founded on biblical law, on biblical principles, and that those mattered and those were the secret to defeating communism. So today we're talking about the fact that this book makes a call for military leaders to make choices in their lives, to make sure their habits align with their moral character. This book makes calls for people to make a choice and say, you can be a bum or a hero. And listen, we know this is true. We know, and some of it we get from our military training, but it's just a fact of life. If you are undisciplined, if you do not have time management, if you do not take care of the small things like making your bed in the morning, what you end up is losing your freedom to the chaos around you. That's not living life. You're never going to be able to achieve anything great unless you have self-control, unless you have discipline, unless you have the virtue it takes to be successful. And so this training manual takes several chapters to talk about principles like self-control, like virtue, like courage, explaining what courage is and what it means, and ultimately calling for these officers and future leaders to make a choice not to be a bum, but to be a hero. And this is absolutely critical because this isn't talking about some sort of fake, childish masculinity that we see so much in society today as just sort of the archetype of what it means to be a man. This book makes a call to traditional virtues that we would think are what we would want to see in a real leader. The kind of self-control, the kind of quiet confidence, the kind of leadership that makes a difference, and even calling on leaders to be just and not improperly disciplining their subordinates, actually disciplining them when they deserved it for the right reasons, for the good of the mission. But what's fascinating about this is not only does it talk about the standards for being an officer, but it talks about the fact that a military officer was expected to care about and see to the moral development, the spiritual development, the character development of the airmen under them. Again, think about that. I served in the military for 2 decades. I cannot think of any leader that I worked for that actually took time to ensure in a studied, careful way that the character, the virtue, the morality of those under their authority were actually developed. Now, certainly there were things that were talked about. I worked for good men and women who were leaders, who were effective leaders, who took the time to shape me, to try to shape my character. But I'm talking about a specific intentional course to do that. And we know there's a crisis of leadership in our military. We know that many in the military are willing to sacrifice the truth and to sacrifice their oath to the Constitution in order to save their pension and preserve their career. We saw that during the Obama administration. We certainly saw that during the Biden administration. And I'm not just trying to be partisan when I say those things, but that's when we saw it the worst. We saw military officers who were willing to turn their back on the law and the Constitution to participate in the unlawful implementation of the COVID mandate. And they were making a choice. They were making a choice to prioritize something, anything over the truth and over the basic principles that made our nation great, and even over their oath to the Constitution. So my challenge to you is this: whether you're in the military or not, if you're looking at life through a lens of trying to be productive or trying to be busy, but you don't feel like you're being productive, if you're looking at life through a lens that says, I'm not sure where to base my daily decision making on, I'm not sure what character traits I need to be developing in myself, my children, and those around me, I would encourage you to think about the principles that are talked about in this book and think about what it means to make a choice every day to decide, I can stay in bed longer. I don't have to work out. I don't have to go to the gym. I can just lay around. I can spend more time scrolling on Instagram, and I can be a bum, or I can make a choice to be intentional and disciplined and be a hero. Listen, that choice is always ours, and we can make small choices every day to make a difference. And that was a backbone principle of Air Force training in the 1950s. And it's something we've lost today in the military, and it's had a huge negative impact. I hope we're working towards getting it back. So listen, that was day 4 of our series on living for leadership. We're going to have our final day tomorrow. And what I'm going to talk about tomorrow is some practical implications of why this kind of book matters, why the principles in this book matter, and apply them to what we're seeing in the military today. Thanks for listening. Take care.